Welcome to a vlog where I am probably going to be melting down over nearing the end of my first draft of my 9th novel. Self-doubt hits me hardest at two different times in the writing process of the first draft. Is it enough to be the climax? And that's what first drafts are for. They're meant to be messy and a bit of a disaster. Hello and welcome to a new vlog. Welcome if you're new here. Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a full-time university writing instructor and a part-time content creator and indie author. Welcome back if you're one of my lovely returning friends. It is great to have you all here today. Welcome to a writing vlog. Welcome to a vlog where I am probably going to be melting down over nearing the end of my first draft of my 9th novel. 9th to be published, not 9th that I've ever written. And so I should know, I should be prepared for this. I should be expecting this. I think part of me was expecting this, but it feels like it's been so long since I've finished a first draft because of just how things have laid out and stuff. Like, I didn't write anything earlier last year. I was doing mostly editing last year, so it just feels like a while since I've been in this position. And I was talking about this in the last vlog. I was talking about how I'm struggling with third act breakups and figuring out what I really want to do as I'm nearing kind of the end of this novel, and I'm questioning my plot decisions and my outline, and yeah, questioning a lot. And the self-doubt is creeping in. This was the focus of the newsletter that is going out or went out today as I'm filming this. So I'm filming this on Friday, January 24th, in case anyone was wondering. 1 month until my birthday, officially. 1 month to go until I turn 44, so that's exciting. Yeah, I decided that I just started writing the email and that's what came out, and I realized I wasn't done talking about what I had started talking about in the last vlog, but even the email wasn't enough. I'm still not done talking about it. And not everyone subscribes to the email, so I just feel like this might be a good conversation to have here on YouTube. So I want to talk about self-doubt as a writer, particularly while writing the first draft. As I say in the email, self-doubt while editing a second and third and beyond draft, totally different story. We will talk about that when I get to that point, because I will get to that point. But right now, I'm specifically dealing with self-doubt as a writer as I'm nearing the end of my first draft of this novel, and I have thoughts. I have thoughts because I'm realizing my perspective has changed a lot. When I wrote the first draft of my first novel, which has not been published, it's a fantasy novel that I've referred to in some of these vlogs as Project Darkness. I really do want to keep working on that, but reasons. It'll happen eventually, but it's not happening anytime soon. When I first started writing that book, I had no intention of publishing it anytime soon. Self-publishing wasn't really, it was a thing, but it wasn't as easy as it is now. This was before Kindle, before KDP, before all the other competitors to KDP had come along. And so I knew I wasn't going to start querying it. I wasn't going to start showing it to, trying to get an agent or anything. I wasn't going down that process. I just wanted to see if I could write a novel. So it was just something fun. And then when I started working on A Brave Start, so I finished that first draft of Project Darkness, put it away in a folder on my computer, and just thought maybe one day I'll come back to it. Then very quickly after, I went to London for the first time as an adult and had to, I think it was a 10-day trip, had 10 magical days, got home and could not stop thinking about London. And so A Brave Start was born. And I started writing that book. And that took me several years. I was working on it in starts and stops. I wasn't working on it in the same focused way that I tend to work on my books now. And again, I wasn't intending to publish it. It wasn't a priority. I was doing a second master's degree, and then I was doing my PhD. Those things were the priority. And so A Brave Start was just this fun little creative project. So there was no self-doubt because I was purely writing the story for me. I was not thinking about a future audience. I wasn't trying to write it for a specific market. I wasn't thinking about any of those things. And so there was no doubt. I think the doubt started to creep in on that one as I was editing it. But self-doubt and editing, completely different topic. We'll talk about that later, because like in another vlog, because I know that is coming for me probably as soon as I finish the Scrivener read through of Independent Hearts 4 once I'm done with the draft. So that's going to hit me pretty hard with the second draft. I can feel it already because I'm feeling so much self-doubt and I'm questioning everything as I'm nearing the end of the first draft. I didn't start dealing with self-doubt while writing the first draft until probably Brave with You, which is book 2 of the Across the Pond series, because that was the first one that I was writing with the intention of writing it as quickly as I could and publishing it hopefully within a year of when A Brave Start had come out. And that was the first one that I wrote kind of with that, from that mindset or perspective of I'm an indie author now. I'm writing these books for the purpose of publishing them. People have read the first book. They're going to want to read a second book. And so suddenly I had all of you in my head and thinking, are they going to like this? And questioning every little thing I was doing. So that's what I'm noticing with my writing now. With each book, I feel like those questions and those doubts and worries get more and more and more with each subsequent first draft that I write. And there's just something about the first draft, no matter how many times I remind myself, and this is what we'll talk about throughout this vlog, the first draft is just telling myself the story. I think that's a quote from Terry Pratchett, that the first draft is just telling yourself the story. You should not be thinking about an imaginary audience or a potential future or ideal audience. You should not be thinking about them at this point. You're just telling yourself the story. And so I just thought it might be fun in this vlog to talk a little bit about self-doubt and perfectionism and second-guessing yourself while writing your first draft. Things to keep in mind as you're writing first draft, and just advice that has helped me over the last 5 years that I've been publishing that might hopefully make your first draft process feel a little bit less overwhelming and intimidating and a little bit less scary, I hope. So that's what we're going to talk about. I need to get some work done first, so there's your little intro. I'm now going to set you all up on some time lapses while I get some work blasted out. It should be an early finish for me this week, or on Friday today, because I have been very productive this week, but I do have some emails and I have some grading, and I want to try to do a little bit of class prep for my B session class that's starting later this semester. I've got to pop out for physical therapy in about 45 minutes. Then I'll come back and get back to work. And in between working, we'll just chat about first drafts and self-doubt and why we shouldn't be having self-doubt while writing our first draft. Okay, it is now later in the afternoon. It is after 3 o'clock. I am pretty much done with teaching work for the week. I'm done grading. I'm all caught up on grading. And I've replied to every email that's like been waiting for a reply. So all of that's taken care of. I'm just going to keep an eye on my email, and if something comes in between now and 5 o'clock, I'll respond to that. For the most part, I'm done with teaching work and I'm moving on to writing. So let's talk about writing. Quick writing update. I don't know if I said this earlier, I can't remember, but I've not done much writing this week. I have only written one day so far this week. I wrote on the 22nd and I did 1,416 words. And that's the only writing I've done since the 18th, which I believe was the last day I vlogged. That was Saturday. So on that day, actually I've got it right in front of me. Yes, it was the 18th, and I did 1,968 words. So I had a really great day on Saturday, and then I took Sunday off because Sunday is not scheduled to be a writing day. Monday I ended up taking off as well because reasons. I was pretending the world didn't exist on Monday, basically. Tuesday I had to teach. Wednesday I wrote 1,416 words, and then Thursday the 23rd I didn't write. I just wasn't feeling it yesterday. I worked on other stuff, got my newsletter done and ready to go out today. I made sure that the bonus video that I had filmed and edited was going up to put up today, so that has been live since this morning. So if you enjoyed that bonus video, my favorite books of 2024 and my reading plans for 2025, I hope you enjoyed that. If you missed that, that was a sneaky little video I put up on a Friday. I am going to try to start doing Friday videos again twice a month. I'm hoping for the first and the third Friday of every month, so every other Friday basically. And then if I can do a third and or a fourth, cool, but I'm not committing to going back to weekly Friday videos, like 3 videos a week every week. I can't commit to that. So yeah, so I didn't do any writing yesterday, so today is only the second day this week that I'm going to try to write. I would like to have another 1,000+ word day. I think according to Scrivener, my goal is, if my monitor will turn on, 831. So that is what I need to get to stay on track. I am currently at 81,706 words total in the manuscript, and I am partway through, almost to the end of chapter 18. So yeah, I'm almost done with chapter 18, which means I only have 2 more chapters and then the epilogue left to this book. And considering I have almost 20,000, like I've got 18,000 words left at my disposal, you know, as part of my 100,000 word goal. 2 chapters, like even if those 2 chapters and the epilogue were all 5,000 words each, which they're not going to be, and even if I wrote another few thousand words in chapter 18, like I am not going to get to 100,000 words on this one. This will be the first time. I should not jinx myself, but I don't see how I'm going to get to 100,000 words. I do think this will be the first book that I have ever written where I will come in under my target. I should not get used to this. I should not get used to this. I want the finished book to be around 100,000. And I know I think this is part of where my doubts and worries are coming in as well, is I know throughout this manuscript there have been sections that just aren't as detailed and developed as I would like. There's room. And I know that in a lot of these chapters I have like little notes to myself, things that just need a bit more detail. So normally I come in slightly over my goal for the whole manuscript, and then not only have to go back in and add detail in some places, but I have to cut out things from other places to keep it as close to 100,000 words as possible. Like one reason why you all still haven't seen book 1 of my Royal Romance series is because that book came in 35,000 words over my goal. It can be over 100,000 words, but it's at 135,000. Maybe even it was more than that. And it cannot be that long. But the thought of going back to edit that one now is just so overwhelming. And since I really can't manage to publish more than one book a year, I just don't really want to start a new series because it would then mean you're not getting a new Across the Pond or a new Independent Hearts every other year. I would start having to do like every 2 or 3 years rotating through. So the Royal Romance series is kind of on the shelf along with the fantasy series. One day I will be able to do that. But yeah, so like I know there's room for me to add, and there have been times where I've not let myself go into as much detail because I'm just trying to get through. I think I was also not writing as much detail to begin with because back in October, November, early December, I was trying to write as much as I could before the end of 2024. So coming in under my word goal would be great because it means I have room to add. So, but it's not helping me feel as confident about this as I could. And so going back to kind of the main point of this vlog, when it comes to self-doubt as a writer, I find that self-doubt hits me hardest at two different times in the writing process of the first draft. It hits me at the beginning when I'm just getting started because I'm at word 0 of 100,000 and I've got the entire book to write and everything is an option and I haven't started committing words to paper yet or words to the screen, and so my outline could still change, and it feels very overwhelming having that much freedom and knowing that like, okay, now I'm done outlining, I have to start writing and I have to start committing to things, at least for the first draft. Nothing is ever written in stone. Even I could go back to any of my books that have been published and I could make changes. I could change the ending and upload a new file and and not say anything, and then you all would be really confused when someone starts talking about the alternate ending. But like, you can change things. But certainly while you're writing the first draft, everything can be changed in the editing process. But I will still get really, really hung up in the beginning and just I'll find that doubt creeping in, like, should I even be writing this story? Should I switch to a different character in the series and write that character's story first? You know, what if I'm making the wrong decision about what character to do next? So there's lots of things that can pop up in my head. If it's book 1 of a series, I can start doubting my whole idea for the series. Book 1s are a challenge. So like if you're writing the first book of a series, just FYI, book 1s always feel harder. I do know why, at least for me. It's because you're building a whole new world and you're doing a lot more in a book 1 than you're doing in a book 2, 3, 4, whatever. With subsequent books, you're building on what you've already created and you have that foundation to build on. With book 1, you're laying that foundation, and so it adds an extra layer of stuff to question yourself over. So beginnings are hard, and I struggle with self-doubt at the beginning of a first draft, but endings are hard, and that's where I'm at now. And it's the closest I can kind of compare it to, and this might not be that accurate of a comparison, but it's kind of similar to my flying anxiety. Like, I'll get really, really nervous at takeoff, and then I will like adjust and settle into the flight. And as long as the flight is relatively smooth and there's no like really wild turbulence, I'll be okay for like the 9 hours of the middle of a 10-11 hour flight from Phoenix to London. I'll watch movies, I'll go through the dinner service, I'll try to take a nap, I'll listen to music. I'm fine during that middle part. Like, I'm already up in the air, and as long as nothing feels like it's changing that experience, I'm fine. But then the landing, my anxiety spikes back up again because everything's been fine so far, so the landing is the last time something can go wrong. And so my anxiety just goes to another level. It's kind of the same thing with writing a book. The beginning feels really scary because you don't know what's going to happen. Then you get past those first couple chapters and you feel like you're getting into a rhythm, and you go through like that middle 80% of the book. It's like the 10 to 15% at the beginning and the 10 to 15% at the end was where I struggle the most. That middle bit, I'm generally okay. Like in a 20 chapter book, like I'm writing from chapter 3 to chapter 17, I'm okay. But it's those first few chapters and these last few chapters where I'm at right now. And so at these last few chapters, it's like, this is the last place that I can just really mess things up. And if I mess up the ending, if I don't stick the landing kind of a feeling, then I'm just going to have this massive mess to clean up in the editing process. And I think by this point, I'm also starting to gradually shift to editing and thinking about things from an editing perspective. I'm starting to mentally put together what my revision plan is going to be, what do I need to start doing, and I'm starting to try to edit in my head, and I'm starting to get that feeling of looking at things while I'm writing them to try to fix any problems ahead of time rather than just letting myself write it and fix it later. And this is why I say, and people can disagree with me, people have, but this is the hill I will die on. You cannot developmental edit your book while you are writing it. It's two separate brain processes, for one, but second, you can't. Developmental editing requires you to step back and see the whole big picture. And you cannot do that if you're still writing the tail end of that big picture. So I know this, I know I can't do this, that when I feel my brain slipping into that judgy mode of, is this really good enough? I need to just silence that voice because this is not the time to worry about it. So if you're struggling with that as well, like, just know beginnings and endings of the first draft is where you're probably going to struggle the most. Sometimes also around the midpoint, because the midpoint, any of those big like tentpole moments of your plot, those are where you're probably going to question yourself the most. And so if you're currently writing those sections and you're noticing that you're struggling a bit, that's why. It's normal. It's okay. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves of this, whether we're writing our first book or we're writing, this is my 9th book that I'm publishing, but I've written 2 first drafts. I have 2 completed first drafts of books that haven't been published. So this is my 12th first draft that I'm writing, and that I'm nearing the end of. So I know all these things. I just have to remind myself of them. So yeah, beginnings and endings are definitely where you're going to struggle with self-doubt the most, I feel like. And there are reasons why we struggle with that. And so that is what we can talk about in a moment, but I want to start doing some writing, or I'm going to end up just talking all afternoon and not getting any writing done, and that would not be good. I want to try to finish chapter 18 and get started on chapter 19, and I am coming up on like a really exciting moment. I'm writing the climax, or the first part of the climax, so I want to just get this written and then we can talk some more. Okay, I finished chapter 18. That's very exciting. So I am now up to 82,670 words. So I have just over 17,000 words left to my goal, but only 2 chapters and an epilogue. And the epilogues are never as long as the main chapters. Chapter 18 ended up being 3,709 words, so 3,709. So I'm guessing, because I do tend to keep the last few chapters on the slightly shorter side. Like I'd have to look back through all the drafts, but I can't remember ever having like the last 1 or 2 chapters of a book being 5,000, 6,000 words long. Usually the last few chapters are under 4,000. I could be wrong. This book is already breaking rules in terms of what's normal. So these last couple chapters could be on the longer side, but like even if they were both several thousand words long, I still think I'm going to finish this in under 100,000, which is amazing. I want to start writing chapter 19 because I'm literally mid-moment. Pro tip, more experienced writer tip of how to write page-turning chapters. End a chapter on a big moment. End a chapter middle of the moment. I feel like sometimes writers feel like they have to end a chapter at the end of a scene, end a chapter in the middle of the scene, end a chapter after a big reveal, or the door is about to open and they don't know who's on the other side, or some big news is about to be announced. End a chapter mid-moment. It helps you then dive into writing the next chapter, but it also makes the reader want to flip and start the next chapter. So if readers are like, oh, I'll stop reading at the end of this chapter, if you end a chapter mid-moment, they will at least start the next chapter before they put the book down. It's the same way that like TV episodes will end on a bit of a cliffhanger so that you have to watch the next episode. So it is kind of a classic writing technique. So I've done that because again, you don't necessarily need to do it every single time. If you end every chapter on a moment, then people will just learn to stop reading for the day in the middle of a chapter. So you never want to be predictable about it. But I do like to do this every few chapters. It doesn't always line up that I can end a scene or end a chapter in the middle of a scene like this and have it work and not feel awkward. But I try to do it at least every few chapters. Like I'd say every 3 to 5 chapters. I try to do it. It does make me more willing to then keep writing the next chapter and get the next chapter started. So it feels like less of a stopping point for me as a writer, but then I do think it makes a difference in getting readers to continue reading. So I like doing this in particular in the first few chapters and in the last few chapters, because if each chapter in the beginning is ending and feels like it has a natural end and people can put the book down at the end of the chapter and come back another day, then there's not much to motivate them to like keep reading and get further into the book. So this first few chapters I like to end, if not mid-moment, then at least end on some sort of question so that the reader wants to keep reading. And then in the last few chapters, I like ending on these moments so that it encourages the reader to just keep reading until the end and not put the book down with like 1 chapter left to go. So that's what I've done, going from chapter 18 to chapter 19. I feel like this moment is going well, but I'm still overall, like this moment in the book, this particular scene, but I'm still apprehensive about what is left to write in chapter 19 and then in chapter 20, because I'm still worried that this is going to ultimately feel a bit anticlimactic. Like I feel like this scene is a bit action-packed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of drama for the characters, both personally for the main character as well as professionally in terms of the business that this book is focusing on. So like there's a lot going on, but does it really feel like it's enough of a climax? I think what I'm struggling with is there's a difference between a scene having a lot of drama and action and conflict and it feeling like it's the actual climax of the book. And I want it to feel like this is the climax of the book and not like it's just another big dramatic scene and a big dramatic moment for the main characters. Like it needs to feel not just pivotal, but it needs to feel climactic, right? Like it needs to feel like everything has been building up to this moment. And I think it's because what I have designated as the climax isn't necessarily something. What is going to be learned from this moment is what we've been building up to, but the moment itself, this will make sense when you read the book if I keep it this way. But like this is something I'm going to have to really think about when I'm working on editing this. It's just, is it enough? Is it enough to be the climax? Or should I move this? Like, I think what I'm struggling with is, should this scene have been the midpoint and something else be the climax? Like, because was my midpoint, you know, pivotal enough? Self-doubt, y'all. It's not fun. It's not fun when all you want to do is finish the book and your brain is starting to second guess everything. It's not fun. And I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy writing these last couple chapters. And I will make myself enjoy writing these chapters. Like I just want to enjoy writing these chapters. But I am definitely starting to really worry. And I think when writers get self-doubt in the beginning of the draft and the end of the draft, but when you're dealing with self-doubt in the first draft, part of it is perfectionism. You want to write a perfect book and you have to let that go because A, you're never going to write a perfect book. None of my books are perfect. All of my books have flaws. All of my books even have like typos and errors, a couple still in each of them. Like none of your final drafts will ever be perfect because perfection does not exist. That's A, that's number one. Your no book is ever going to be perfect. So you've got to let go of that nonsense right away as fast as possible. Number two, B, your first draft is definitely never gonna be perfect. Like, it's just not. The first draft isn't meant to be perfect. The first draft is, as I think it's Terry Pratchett who says, the first draft is just you telling yourself the story. The first draft, you shouldn't be thinking about a potential ideal reader or your future audience of the book. You shouldn't be thinking about people who are going to one day buy this book and read it. Like every time thoughts of you all pop up in my head, what are they gonna think? I like shove you out of my brain. You're not allowed in here yet. You are not allowed. No. This isn't your book yet. This is still my book. This is still my draft. That's the other thing. The drafts are only ever yours as a writer. No one else. The drafts don't belong to anyone else. Even your beta readers, you know, alpha readers, beta readers, the drafts don't belong to them either. The drafts are always yours. They are allowed opinions. Your alpha and betas are allowed opinions on the draft, and they are allowed to give you feedback on the drafts, but the drafts are still yours. The final drafts are the readers. And so there is a process of going from the first draft through subsequent drafts into the final draft. The final draft, once you've put all of your blood, sweat, and tears, your entire soul, and all of your hopes and dreams for this book into it, in the final draft, you get to then send that out into the world and let other people read it, and then it becomes their book. I'm not there yet. Like, I'm far from there. So whenever thinking about what are the fans of this series going to think when they read this book, or what is, because this is a standalone, essentially, you could just dive straight into number 4. What are new readers of the series going to think about this book? I have to let those thoughts go because they don't have any place in this part of the process. I am a recovering perfectionist. I'm not a recovered perfectionist because I still struggle with it, but I have recognized that perfectionism does not serve me at all as a writer, and so I am learning to let that go, and I've done well. I've made improvements over the last few books, but it still creeps up, especially as I'm nearing the end, and especially whenever I've got a book where I just know I haven't nailed it. And that doesn't happen all the time. There are some books where I'm locked in, I'm confident, I know my outline is strong, I know my idea is strong, I'm happy about every single scene, and I'm super excited about it, and I'm looking forward to the editing process because I know that it's just a matter of strengthening and refining and polishing things. I don't feel that way about this one. This one, I know it's going to be a mess. There's going to be a lot that needs to be fixed structurally. I very well could end up moving the climax to the midpoint and having to completely rewrite the end of this book. All of that could happen. I'm not going to think about that just now. I'm going to keep writing it the way I've written it, or the way I've outlined it, and go from there. But, I just want to get these last couple chapters written. I just want to, like, I'm so close to finish. It is not going to take me another 17,000 words, nor is it going to take me another almost month. I'm scheduled to continue writing this for almost a full month still. It's the 24th of January. I'm scheduled to finish it by the 23rd of February. I am going to finish this much sooner than that, even if I still have weeks where I'm only writing 2 or 3 days in a week. So I'm both excited and terrified of getting to the editing process. I know it's going to need so much work, and it might not be as bad as I think. It might not be as bad as I think. Once I go back and read the whole draft, start to finish, it might not be as bad as I think. Anyway, I'm going to stop melting down on camera over this draft. I'm going to continue writing. I'm going to try to get another 500-ish words written, finish out the scene I'm currently writing, and then we'll talk some more. Intended to write about 500 more words, but my finger slipped and now I'm at 2,470. But I'm gonna make myself stop. I could keep going, part of me really does, but I'm also now, I can feel my brain slowing down, and I don't exactly know how I want to transition into the next part of this scene. So I'm gonna stop. I will do some writing tomorrow, maybe. I'm going over to my parents' house tomorrow, which you'll see in the next vlog. So I might not get much writing done tomorrow, but if I don't write tomorrow, I will write on Sunday, possibly. I might not, because I've written way more than I intended to today. I like the scene I've written. This is, I think, one of the things I'm struggling with. It's not that I think that what I'm writing is bad. I like what I'm writing. I just don't know if it's climactic enough. I don't like reading books, and I definitely don't like writing books where it feels like the ending is just a bit anticlimactic. I don't want the reader to get to this point and feel like that's it. That's not the feeling I want. This is something I'm gonna have to consider and think about. But it's also, this is why you can't edit while you write. In order to feel more confident about this, I would have to stop and go back to chapter 1 and reread everything I've written to see if I am building up to this and if this really is enough of a moment to be the climax. I think also I'm realizing, I'm looking at my outline and I'm realizing the climax isn't just one specific moment. It's a chain of moments that happen, and then how the main character responds to that. So it starts, like, it kicks off in chapter 18 and then it continues through chapter 19, and then the resolution is in chapter 20. So it's a little bit different from how I've done some of my other books, but it's not bad, it's not wrong, but I don't know if it's enough. So I have to wait and see. I have to just finish and then work on it, go back and read it, work on it, see what happens, and hopefully it will be okay. I hope. Hopefully. It'll be fine. It's always fine. This is the other thing to remember. It's always fine. Everything you worry about, everything you stress about, always ends up being okay eventually. You fix it. This is why you really have to fight that self-doubt during the first draft, because the first draft is going to be messy. It is going to be imperfect. It's going to have structural problems and developmental problems, and the characters aren't going to be fully fleshed out, and there's going to be plot threads that are loose and dangling, and there's just going to be stuff that is not right. And that's what first drafts are for. They're meant to be messy and a bit of a disaster. And then you fix it when you're editing. And you'll have other meltdowns. I will have other meltdowns when I start editing this. But usually going back and doing the reread of the first draft, taking some time off, doing something else for like at least a week, if not longer, and then coming back and reading through the draft, making notes, like on that read through, I usually have one of two responses. And it's pretty much only ever these two responses. Either I realize, actually it's not that bad, and it was all in my head and I was worrying for nothing, and here's the easy list of things I need to fix. Or the second reaction I will sometimes have is, oh, it is a mess, but here's all the things that need to fix. It's very obvious. This chapter needs to be flipped with this one, or this moment needs to happen here, or it needs to happen later, or this character is just not fully developed and I need to do more character development. Like, usually it's then very clear what is actually wrong. Right now, I just have this feeling of something could be wrong, but I don't know if it's wrong. And so I won't know until I just finish the draft and go back and read through it and edit it. So yeah, I can't believe I did 2,400 words. It's so weird because there are so many doubts and I'm second guessing so hard. My brain is just full of doubts and second guessing and criticism and perfectionism and all these things. But I'm also just so excited to finish it. I think because I know once I read the first draft, I will then know how much work this actually needs, and if it is all in my head and I need to just chill out. So like, the sooner I get this done, the sooner I can read it and put my mind to rest as far as knowing what the rest of this semester is going to look like in terms of editing. Like, is it going to be easy to edit, or is it going to be a headache to edit? I don't know, and I won't know until I finish writing it. I think the other thing, I've got my notes here. I have no idea how this vlog is going to turn out, but I had written some notes. I don't script my videos because it's weird to script a vlog. You shouldn't script a vlog. But I did jot down some ideas last night of just things related to this topic of self-doubt and writing a first draft that I wanted to talk about. I think one thing I haven't addressed is related to the perfectionism. We just want our first drafts to be good. Partly because I think a lot of writers are scared of editing. Most of us would prefer to just write forever. We don't want to edit. Even when you have an editor, like the editor can only do so much for you. You still have to make those final changes, and if something needs to be rewritten or moved around, like that's your job. The editor will only flag things and make notes and give suggestions, but you've got to make those choices. Most of us would be happy to just write forever and not edit. So I think our perfectionism adds to that fear of editing. We just want our first draft to be as perfect as possible so that it will require as little editing as possible. And that's just not how writing works. And I try to tell my students this all the time, that so much of writing is actually editing. The majority of the writing process is editing, and the majority of that story building process happens in the editing. It's like writing is just getting the broad strokes down on paper, or the broad strokes of a painting on a canvas, or getting a general shape of something if you're sculpting out of clay. And editing is where you start like getting the fine details coming together, and you can see what that piece of art actually is going to be. So editing is a huge part of writing. You can't escape it. And no matter how badly you try to write the most perfect first draft ever, you're still going to have to edit your book. You can't avoid it completely. So that quest for the perfect first draft is just going to melt your brain, and it's just going to lead to problems. I think it's very easy when we're writing our first draft to fall into comparison and comparing our first draft to books that we've read before. And the really, really dangerous part of that habit is we're only ever then comparing our first drafts to other people's final drafts. And that's never a fair comparison. You can't compare your lovely, imperfect first draft to someone else's finished, published final draft that's gone through endless rounds of revision and peer review and beta draft reviewers and ARC reviewers and a professional editor or whatever. Like you that's not a fair comparison. That's like comparing apples to oranges, right? They're both fruit, but they're different fruit. With books, comparing your first draft to someone else's final draft, they're both books, but they're very different books at very different stages of the process, and you cannot compare them. It's never going to work out. You are never going to live up to the expectations of someone else's final draft while you're writing your first draft. So, long vlog short, if you've skipped ahead to the end of this vlog, the too long didn't watch, fair enough, I suppose, is ultimately when you start struggling with self-doubt while writing the first draft, and you will, because we all do. Especially if you are someone who is writing that first draft with the intent of either self-publishing it or querying it. And you're not just writing it for fun, but you are writing it with the specific intention of eventually trying to publish it. You will hit these moments of self-doubt. You will question everything. You will have the times where you want to just delete everything and start over from scratch. And I beg of you, do not do that. Don't delete it. If you want to put it in a folder and start from scratch, that's fine, but never delete things. Even when you're editing, I never delete things from my drafts. I cut and paste them into a separate section of my Scrivener file so that they're never gone completely. But you will have that urge to just scrap everything and start from scratch. Just finish the first draft. Even if you have to write several first drafts, that's fine, but don't delete anything. Don't give up. Just keep going, because chances are very good that it is not as bad as you think, basically, and that it will be okay once you start editing it. So that is what I'm trying to remind myself of. It's not as bad as I think. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I know there's a lot of good stuff in here. I just need to finish it and then let my alpha readers have a crack at it. And then they will definitely tell me that I'm losing my mind over nothing and I need to just chill the heck out and just take a deep breath. So I'm going to take a deep breath now. I can't believe how much I wrote today. I think I'm going to wrap up this vlog here because I've been long and chatty, and I also know that I love you all. I do. I don't want to talk to you anymore tonight. I don't think I have any talking in me left. I think I'm all talked out. I know you probably think that that's not possible. It is. Even I have my limit of how much I can talk. So I think I'm going to wrap up the vlog here, and I'm going to wrap up the day here. I'm just going to go find something for dinner. I literally just want to go crawl onto the couch and just collapse and not do anything. I shouldn't have written this much today. I really shouldn't. Like, it's cool. It makes up for, like, literally 2,400 words. That's 3 days of 800 words. If my goal has been around 800 something each day, like, I really am, like, caught up to where I wanted to have been by today. So, like, in that respect, it's great. But there's a reason why I don't really like writing more than 2,000 words in a day anymore. It just, my brain, I probably will take tomorrow off, and then we'll see how I feel on Sunday, and I might try to write on Sunday, but there's usually a knock-on effect. There's an impact when I write this much, and sometimes it's that I just don't feel like writing for a couple of days. And that's why I would rather be someone who writes every day for 800 to 1,000 words and does that every day consistently than someone who writes 2,000 words here and 3,000 words there, but then has like a few days off in between. It's too easy for my brain to then turn a few days into several days into a few weeks that I don't write. When I let myself start taking a day off here and there, those days off, they multiply. And then I can have a while go by where I haven't worked on things. So I am at a stage in my life where I am better with shorter word count days on a more daily basis than high word count days with long gaps in between. So I might give myself the weekend off and then try to start fresh on Monday and then see. Like I said, I don't think I will finish the book next week, but I'm so close. I'm so close. So I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. I hope this has been interesting. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up. That would make me feel a lot better. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I would really, really love that. We're inching ever closer to 5,000. At the rate things are going, that's probably going to take me until the summer to get there, but we will get there this year, knock on wood. But yeah, subscribe if you're not subscribed. I'd really appreciate that. Say hi in the comments. Let me know how you're doing. Leave me a coffee cup emoji for the delicious latte I had earlier from Whole Foods. In the comments, let me know if you're a writer. Let me know your thoughts on first draft struggles and self-doubt. If you're not a writer, chances are you've struggled with self-doubt in some other area of your life. So what is you, as a writer or not as a writer, just in general, what are some of your best pieces of advice for dealing with self-doubt? I would love to know. We can all help each other out in the comments. And yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now. And I'm gonna go get on with a relaxing evening, and I will see you all very soon tomorrow when I start vlogging the next vlog. So you all will see that on Wednesday. So I will see you all very soon on Wednesday in the next vlog. Thank you very much for watching today. Bye.